My name is Elaine Book, and I am a social worker at the UBC Movement Disorders Clinic, Pacific Parkinson's Research Center. I've been a social worker for many, many years, but I've been working in the field of Parkinson's for almost 13 years. And tonight, I'm really, really looking forward to sharing some time with you because I really do consider all of you the experts as you live life daily with Parkinson's disease. And I always learn something new from you. So, what I hope to do today is to give you a bit of a taster session on self management, something to capture your interest. Hopefully, you will gain a few pearls, leave with some next steps, and certainly I will leave some time at the end for questions and for you sharing your expertise. Throughout the talk, there are different points where I might ask a probing question. Please feel free to type in anything that you would like to add, and Amy is sitting beside me and is going to be kind of monitoring the chat box as well. So I encourage you to certainly be as interactive as you would like to be. The other caveat here or disclaimer, we always do disclosures at the beginning of talks, and the disclosure here is that my slides are a bit funky as we go forward. What was bullet points on my PowerPoint have turned into cute little question marks where there was otherwise a bullet mark. So we're just going to roll with that, and we'll go from there. So we will get started. So let's just kind of start with defining what is self-management. What does that term mean to you? And certainly, I invite you all to chime in on the chat box if you would like. And as some of you are thinking about this and typing in, I'm just going to chat for a little bit myself. It may seem like a bit of a buzzword but there really is actually quite a bit of research out there that recognizes self-management as a very valuable tool in the overall management of Parkinson's disease. There's evidence to support self-management strategies in that they can really lead to improvements with pain and fatigue, can work towards increased acceptance of changes in physical and mental function. Self-management strategies can be valuable in improved emotional coping and can also lead to improved healthcare collaborations. And so, what does self-management mean? Oh, how come it's not advancing, Amy? It's about being proactive, and it is about working at overcoming the physical, mental, and emotional problems that may be caused by the condition. It's also about learning how to function with at your best, regardless of the difficulties that life presents. Which one was? And to achieve the things that you want to do and to get pleasure from life. And another way of looking at self-management is to learn several different techniques to better manage the various different situations that might present itself in daily life. So it's really about feeling empowered to take responsibility for your well-being. And it's a bit of a shift from a medical model of healthcare where doctor knows all. And physicians have a very large and important role to play, but so do you. And living with a chronic condition, you really do become the expert on your body. So the chronic disease self-management program is a leading practice program that originally is out of Stanford University and has been almost seen as the industry standard. The program is very comprehensive, and here I have listed some of the core self-management skills that one needs to develop. So, managing Parkinson's disease and its symptoms, problem solving, decision making, um, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and accessing the support that you need. So I just want to expand on each one of these kind of core self-management skills and talk a little bit about them and so how do you develop these skills? So in managing Parkinson's disease, you are going to have to make decisions about when to seek medical help. You're going to need to consider treatment options, including taking medications appropriately. You're going to have to prepare yourself for your neurological visit, and you really are going to have to work with your healthcare team. So, how do you equip yourself to be able to do these tasks? Well, a good starting place is to increase your health knowledge and confidence in order to become an active self manager. You want to read information from reputable websites and books and tune into reliable webinars, of course, like this one tonight. And I have certainly provide a list at the end of some other options to get that good information. But basically, getting informed will allow you to make the best decisions that you can. And certainly do prepare for your neurology visit. You want to be clear about your symptoms. You might even consider keeping a symptom diary for a couple weeks prior in order to be clear about what's working well and what is challenging. You might think about your top 3 most burning questions, and certainly you can bring others along, but at this way you're ensured that you are going to get your most important issues addressed. And also, you really want to work on building your healthcare team. I have the acronym there, TEAM. Team engagement is a must, is really quite true, and that can include nursing, physio, occupational therapist, speech, social work, doctor, massage, personal trainer, nutritionist, counselor. All of these people become your healthcare team. And then you can really tap into each of their areas of expertise as you need them. And certainly recognize that these team members may also be able to answer your questions and concerns in between your neurologist visits. So the next core self-management skill is problem solving. So problem solving and decision making, well, those are a necessary part of life, certainly as your condition continues to um, uh, improve, and certainly as your condition worsens over time. Some of this may seem basic, so I won't spend a lot of time here, but sometimes when we are faced with a problem, we kind of get stuck in the muck and can have a hard time gaining clarity. And certainly anxiety and mood and cognitive changes can also make problem solving a little bit more challenging. And so here is just kind of a basic guideline that you might consider when faced with a problem. You want to identify the problem well. We can say stairs are a problem, but in actual fact, the real problem might be a fear of falling. So you really want to still down to the best that you can, the best ability that you can to uh, figure out and identify what the problem is. The next thing, you want to list ideas to solve the problem. Think about, what can I do to change? Ask yourself a key question. Can I change something about myself something about the task or about the environment to improve the challenge that's in front of me. So, for example, if you want to improve speech by doing exercises, or you change the chair that you sit in order to improve the ability for you to get up, or perhaps you wear slip on shoes instead of those with laces. So, really, you can also consult with others. Sometimes, again, we kind of get stuck, and a simple solution might be right in front of us, but an expert as well may have some suggestions that you might not have thought of. So, do consult others when you're looking at ways to solve or ideas to solve the problem. The next step is pick an idea and try it. Give it a fair trial. Remember that new approaches take time and get used to it. Well, take time for you to get used to, and it also may need tweaking as you start to try it. And lastly, you want to evaluate the outcome, of the idea. What worked? What didn't work? If it worked, great, problem is solved. If not, you might want to try another idea from the list. And I think it's really important to remember that some problems may not be solvable at present, and that there might be a time sensitive issue here. And maybe you're going to need to revisit this issue later. And also remember that attitude and perspective really becomes critical in coping day to day. And I'm going to talk more about that throughout this evening, but it's important to just keep going as best as possible despite the presenting challenge that you may have. So another core self-management skill is decision making. And decision making is very much related to problem solving, because as we're solving problems, we're often making decisions and choices. So what are some guidelines for making decisions? Again, here's pretty basic ideas here, but it's sometimes helpful to have a framework to start with. And so when faced with a decision, you might want to start by identifying what the options are that are available to you. Then you can list the pros and cons for each option, and that might include financial pros and cons, emotional, physical, social, anything. You want to think about your values because that will help you to set priorities. So spend some time thinking about what is important to you in relation to this decision. And then finally, you want to rate each of those items on a scale of a 5-point scale, with 0 being not very important and 5 being very important to you. And then you add up the rating for each of the columns and compare. So the column with the higher total can help you make that decision. If the totals are, and we can, we'll just stay there. And if the totals are quite close, you can listen to your gut. You do the gut test. How do you feel about this decision? And think about how you would feel if you made the decision one way or another. And now on this next slide, I kind of have a little bit of an example to show you a bit better what I was talking about. So the example is, should I get help in the house? You list the pros, you list the cons, and then you assign your rating to how important each of those things are. Again, on a scale from 0 to 5, what's most important to you, and it's kind of reflective of your values. So in this example, the pros definitely outweighed the cons, and the idea of getting help would probably be a good one. So once you tackle kind of problem solving and decision making, well, then what? Well, taking action is the key to success. So that brings us to our next core skill in self-management, which is taking action to maintain a healthy lifestyle with regular exercise, with healthy eating, good sleep habits, and of course, certainly stress management. So again, I'd like to kind of take an example. let's say you've decided that you want to exercise more or you need to exercise more. Well, now you need to come up with a realistic plan as to how that's going to happen. So you need to decide, well, what is it that I'm going to do? I'm going to get exercise by walking, by riding a stationary bike, by going to a class. What is the activity? What is it that you're going to do? Then you want to kind of plan, well, how much are you going to do? How much time are you going to devote to this activity? Is it going to be 15 minutes or is it going to be walking around the block? Kind of just get a sense of how much time you are going to do this activity. And of course, then when are you going to do it? And really be specific. I'm going to do it at 8 o'clock in the morning after I've had my breakfast and before I go to work, or I'm going to do it once I get home. So when, what time of day? And then how often are you going to do it? Am I going to do it once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week? And I think the most important part of when you're taking action is to set yourself realistic goals and expectations. Think about how sure are you that this plan is achievable. So once you've come up with your plan, really look at, is this a doable plan? Is it achievable? So you have to try and think about it on a scale out of 10 as to whether or not it's doable. If you have, you think it's going to be a 7 or above out of 10 on the doable scale, then you're in good shape. But once you think about it, if you think that this plan is probably more like a 4 or a 5 in doability, then you need to change up the goal or change up the plan in order to make it more realistic. Because what's really important is we want this to be successful. And if you don't succeed, you want to then take a look at, well, why hasn't I succeeded? And what can be changed in order to make it happen? So just because something doesn't work doesn't mean you should give up on the goal. It just might mean that you need to tweak it and make it more doable, more realistic. The other thing is it's sometimes helpful to have somebody else who can hold you accountable to your goal. So you might want to involve friends or involve family members to be a part of keeping you on track with your goal. And you might even consider rewarding yourself or a mutual goal, or excuse me, a mutual reward with the other people who are holding you accountable. You might figure out a shared reward for everybody who's kind of involved in this process so that they'll be invested in your success as well. So the last core self-management skill that I want to talk about is about accessing the support that you need. And I hinted at that a little bit earlier as I talked about having somebody involved in your goal plan, but it's more than that. And each one of these evenings, each one of these topics that I have up on the screen right now really can be an evening's topic all on its own. But nonetheless, we're just going to plant some seeds for tonight. So accessing support really starts with you being comfortable to disclose. And that's really different for everybody. And so when and who you disclose to is really an individual decision. But without doubt, I have not met anybody who does not tell me the sense of relief and support that they have gained by sharing the knowledge of the condition with those people who are in their circle. Certainly, you want to choose carefully who you want to do this with, as there are people who will feed you and people who will drain you. And I really do recognize that there are many reasons for not sharing with others and reasons for sharing. Certainly, different issues for different people. Feelings of shame and embarrassment enter into that for some. And I have a reference at the end as well of a person with Parkinson's who's also got a counseling background, and he has done a lot of work on shame and embarrassment for people with Parkinson's disease. And his website is listed at the end as well. So there's lots of reasons to disclose and to share with people who are going to support you. The second bullet there, which looks like a question mark, it's quite funny actually. The second one there is asking for help. So accessing support really includes asking for help. A time may come when you do need help in a particular area, and you may have to rely on someone else, and that can be hard. That can be embarrassing. That can even be painful on an emotional level. But you can really help yourself better and develop a more positive response to asking for help. Remember the concept of it's changing the things that I can change, accept the things that I cannot change, and being able to know the difference. That concept is really fundamental in being able to stay in charge of your life. You might recognize that you need some help, but you may not necessarily want the help. Be kind to yourself and start with getting help with the things that you might not like to do. That's kind of an easier place to ask for help. Or you might want to consider kind of a reciprocal agreement. Somebody helps by driving you to the grocery store and you prepare a meal. Doing reciprocation of tasks really, I think, from working with people, I've learned really takes the pain out of asking for help when you can feel that you can give back as well when it's reciprocal. You also really want to define the help that you need. Others can't help if they don't know what would truly be useful to you. And language is very powerful in how we feel. So saying what I would find useful versus what I would find helpful can actually leave you feeling a bit more empowered. Looking at community resources, that's the last bullet there, that can be really valuable in maintaining independence and less reliance on family and friends. Things even like transportation services or meal prep services or even home support. Okay. So next, I just wanted to share with you this list that Sonia Mathur shared at a talk that she did at the World Parkinson's Congress. I think this was back in 2016. For those of you who don't know her, she is a physician who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in her late 20s, just as she was finishing her family practice residency training, and she was either recently pregnant or had just given birth to her first child. I can't remember at the moment. Anyhow, while she no longer practices medicine, she is really an incredible advocate for people with Parkinson's, and her website is also listed at the end. And while I have addressed some of the items on her list, I always find that hearing recommendations from someone who is walking the walk really does speak volumes. So this here is her list of the important things that you can do to manage your life with PD. And here is just another lens to look at self-management that I wanted to share with you. It's a self-management program out of Florida called CARE, and stands for Coping, Advocating, Relating, and Engaging. But it's really kind of a catchy way to keep the principles of self-care on your radar. And so just to expand for a moment, coping, well is a complete topic all on its own, but perhaps the most important starting point is that coping is really about attitude. Some people have the catchy phrase, let gratitude be your attitude. The concept this is a concept that many people have innately, and others have to work a little bit more effortfully towards it. But many do tell me how it has really impacted their life, their choices, and their symptoms when they work very hard at maintaining a positive attitude. Advocacy in this regard really refers to many things, but it certainly includes assembling, communicating, and advocating with your team, preparing for your medical visits, and using community resources. Relationships here includes relating to your care partner, with your family, with friends, at work, intimacy issues. All of those things kind of fall under relationships, and are all important areas of your life that do require attention and nourishment. And engaging in life, that kind of encompasses that goal setting that we just talked about. And engaging in life also includes avoiding isolation. Connecting with others with a similar condition can reduce isolation, can really help with what to expect in the future. You can gain practical tips, offer the opportunity to help others, which helps you to appreciate your own strengths. Engaging in life doesn't have to always be done in person. It can be done on the phone. It can be done by the internet. It includes being active in your community, and in your community doesn't have to be just your PD community. It can be in your social network, in your religious community, in your kids' school community, whatever that looks like. And engaging in life also includes participating in research, perhaps, or pursuing a hobby that you've always wanted to engage in, or volunteering. There's a lot of research out there that feeling good by doing good. And so certainly consider your opportunity to do that. So now I would just like to share some other self-management strategies that people in my practice have found useful. We know that stress can definitely have an impact on symptoms. And, I'll even share an example with you of somebody who I was working with, a young onset woman who was doing really very well managing her condition, but then started to notice that she was feeling very stressed and was experiencing some anxiety and some panic attacks. And within a period of 6 months, she had went from walking independently to using walking poles. And this was really a concern to her because she really felt, oh my goodness, is the disease progressing that quickly? And then with time, what ended up happening is she really discovered that um, her physical symptoms were very much a direct result as a result of some stress that she was under in another um, avenue of her life. And that once she gained some control over that stressful um, experience, she was able to focus more on her well being and the impact that it had on her symptoms. And today she's no longer walking with walking poles. So I think it's really important for us to be mindful of the stress in our lives, but also consider some mindfulness activities. So there's a lot of talk out there about mindfulness practice and being mindful, but what is it? Well, it's the awareness that emerges when you pay attention on purpose to the present moment, and very non-judgmentally letting that experience unfold. It's about stopping and seizing the moments of life. Mindfulness can be practiced in many different ways. It can include meditation, yoga, progressive relaxation, even adult coloring is become quite a mindfulness practice. nature walks, listening to music, so many options. And it's really about picking the one that resonates most to you. Somebody has just typed in that it sounds like this concept of stress is really resonating with you, and every day it seems stressful as a result of your work. And I think that many would probably agree with you, and certainly join in if there's anybody who who finds that in their workday as well. There's been a lot of research that's shown that your mindfulness practice should be done daily. They suggest that it should be done at the same time of day and in the same place in order for mindfulness practice to be most effective. Subjectively, many people talk about the benefits on symptoms like anxiety and muscle tightness. There are a number of apps out there that can be quite helpful in helping you get started in mindfulness practice. Headspace is one of them. Calm is another one. There's another one called 10% Happier. And these are just some ideas to get you started. Often in a conversation with people, I hear about life hacks that people have figured out. A life hack is a strategy or a technique that's used in order to manage your time or daily activities in a more efficient way. And there I have listed some of the life hacks that people have shared with me. The gift cards at a grocery store, I think, was one of my favorite ones because people would tell me that, they're at the grocery store, there's a lineup. Now you're fumbling to get to your credit card into the machine, and then you've got to put the PIN code in. But using an already loaded gift card at the grocery store, it just means taking out that gift card and paying in it, and it really takes the stress out. Does anybody else have any life hacks that they have found that they'd like to share with the group? Oh, and I'm just seeing the comment about taking that 2 p.m. nap at your desk. Yes, that, it's so funny because sometimes people are so reluctant to do that, or they say it, oh, well, now I have to take a nap every day, as though that's a bad thing. And in actual fact, that is a great self-management strategy, because that little quick 30-minute power nap can really reset you for the day and allow you to have a more productive afternoon and evening. So I am a huge fan of naps. So healthcare professionals often shy away from talking about advanced care planning with younger people and families, not wanting to bring it up because, oh, it must mean that the condition is progressing. But in fact, I really strongly believe that these are conversations that we all need to have, regardless of a health condition. We all should be having conversations with those who are close to us about what our values are and what our beliefs are, about how you want to live life. What is important to you in case you would not be able to make your needs known. And again, this is something that we all should be doing regardless of having a health condition, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. Talking about advanced care planning and having these conversations can really actually give you a sense of control at a time when you may feel that you lack some control. And it's also a way to manage fears about the future. It provides an opportunity to really list your anticipated concerns about the future and to brainstorm some possible solutions. And so as a result, I really see advanced care planning as part of self-management. Some people may even start with some concrete tasks of advanced care planning, things like ensuring that you have a power of attorney in place, a representation agreement, or wills. Certainly, these are easier places to start if you're not really ready to go and have that more more difficult conversation about the what ifs of the future. Okay, I love that comment about keeping your symptom diary on your phone, because that's nice and easily accessible and also then easy to send and share. And forced effort exercise. So this drawing here that I have is actually a drawing of one of the people I work with at the clinic, and it's really hard to see all of the small stuff that she's written, but what you can see in the central theme, and that central theme says I can, and all of the stuff around it was really her writing down, focusing on what she can do and what she can do on a difficult day. And I really loved that, because that's when we need to remember what you can do. It's on those difficult days where you need to be reminding yourself of all of the positives. And so she uses this list to remind herself that there is always something that she can do. So she listed things like singing or listening to music or asking for help or telling stories. One of them, which is hard to see, is she said, I can always respect myself. So she found that this was a really powerful tool that she uses, and gave me permission to share it with all of you. A similar kind of story of strength at the World Parkinson's Congress in Japan this past June. There was a speaker by the name of Linda Olson. And this is a woman who had a very traumatic train accident when she was in her late 20s, where she actually lost both of her legs and one arm. And she was in her, like I said, late 20s, and early in her relationship with her husband. And she kind of said to him, if you want out of this, I can understand. Like, this is going to be, our life is going to look a lot different than what we anticipated it looking like now. And her husband's response to him was, he said, if you can do it, I can do it. Well, fast forward 30 years, and she is now diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So she's got these significant physical challenges to begin with, and now she's was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And up until that time, she had already become a very accomplished academic. They had children together, and then came this diagnosis. And so her message at the opening ceremonies was really, if I can do it, you can do it. And I think it really speaks to the role of attitude in overcoming adversity. How are we doing on time? Some people find creating a morning mantra can really help reset their day, or start off their day, or use it throughout the day. Before I carry on with this, I'm just going to respond to the question, what was her name? Her name was Linda Olson. Yes, that's right, Linda Olson. I was just reading this other one about the mugs with the wide base and narrow at the top. That's a great idea. Anyhow, morning mantras. So these are some that I've picked up along my journeys with people, but I certainly do encourage you to come up with your own, with one that works for you. It's just about something that's going to help you to reset your head when it needs that. And the last one is kind of stolen from Nike. Just do it. Action before motivation. And I think that that's a really important thing to remember. Sometimes people are feeling more apathetic with Parkinson's disease, and apathy is a really challenging one to get through. So, just take action before you're even motivated to do it. Just do it. Oh, thank you, Larry, for sharing that video of Linda. That's fantastic. So, you know what? Sometimes the smallest step in the right direction really ends up being the biggest step of your life. Tiptoe if you must, but take that step. And Davis Finney really talks about that it's not about the size of the victory that matters, but just recognizing that every action, large or small, as a victory in and of itself, and use that as as an incentive to keep moving forward. And so I would really like to task each one of you to pick an area of your life that you have been meaning to do something about and take that first step. So here are some next steps that you might consider if you need some help with. The Self-Management BC workshops are available all over British Columbia. I've included the website there so you can go online and look. It's a really excellent 6-week program that delves into the concepts of self-management a little bit more. The Davis Finney website, and they have a wonderful book called Every Victory Counts, and they provide that book free, so you can go onto their website and request a copy of the book. Certainly, the Parkinson's Foundation has some excellent resources and Parkinson's disease reliable information. There's the Moving Forward with PD website. That's from Julio Angulo, who is the gentleman who talks a lot about shame and embarrassment. Some research opportunities if you wanted to get involved. The PPRC is the Pacific Parkinson's Research Center. PPRI, Pacific Parkinson's Research Institute. Fox Foundation, and there's the Michael J. Fox website as well. I would also encourage you to take a peek at the World Parkinson's Congress website. They have some really very good blog where you can kind of get little weekly infusions of your PD knowledge, but it's more than knowledge. They have some very supportive blog entries as well. And in the year and a half leading up to the Congress, they also have webinars and podcasts that are excellent and very reliable information as well. And lastly, I've got the BC Brain Wellness Program, which is a new program that's happening out of the Center for Brain Health out at UBC. There's the website there. It's just begun. Programming is just growing by leaps and bounds every day, so keep checking back. But again, really the concept of looking at music, exercise, art, improv, all sorts of different avenues for maintaining your wellness. There's another website called mindful.org, which can help you if you want to pursue some mindful practice. Another book which I came across called The 52 Lists of Happiness. So journaling, it's called Weekly Journaling for Inspiration and Positivity, Balance, and Joy. But, you know, journaling can be an excellent source of mindfulness practice, grounding yourself, stress reduction. And this was a lovely book where really it prompts you through an activity once a week. There's Parkinson's IQ and You through the Fox Foundation, which again is another new program. I know Larry's quite involved with it, but you might want to take a peek at it. The locations for it, I think, are primarily been in the United States, but hopefully will be coming up to Canada at some point. Park and Stand is another website that is run by a young onset Amatolo Thomas, who was diagnosed at the age of 35. She refers to herself as she has an adjective in front of the word optimist. It's kind of a relentless optimist, as I think of how she refers to herself. And then there's Designing a Cure, which is Sonia Mathur's website. Again, really great, supportive information and perspectives that you might share. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in, taking time and tuning in today. That is a picture of my dog Oscar with his Parkinson's Super Walk bandana on, because that picture to me really just expresses a lot of hope. And I think it's really important for all of us to maintain hope as we navigate life with Parkinson's disease. So certainly open to any questions that you may have. I'm happy to hear any comments or any questions. Okay, so great question, Larry. What's the best way to keep accountable on self-management? I get so busy that I find that I put myself last. Yeah, and I think it's just about really prioritizing and making a commitment to yourself that you do right, and that whatever plan you want to put in place for self-management, there is time carved out. But again, make that a realistic plan. So if realistically self-management can fit into your week only Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then start there and grow from there. Or maybe you're going to find that that's all that you need to do. But again, that idea of accountability. So bring somebody in, your spouse, your kids, it's almost like a behavior modification technique that you need to put in place, and then reward yourself if you do follow through and place yourself ahead of everything else. I hope that gives you an answer. Um, Well, in that picture, Henry, my dog, the question was, how old is your dog? So in that picture, he was very young because at that age, he tolerated large crowds. So he was about 2 or 3 in that picture. Now he's 7 and he doesn't get to come to the walk anymore because he doesn't tolerate all the other friends, all the other furry friends. Oh, so that's another great. So that's accountability, Larry. You're talking about another hack where your office mates stop at 9:30 every day and we do stretches for 10 minutes. Oh, that is such a great idea because it just pulls everybody in because everybody gets busy and before you know it, it's noon and you haven't gotten up from your desk. So again, having others involved in the plan can be really helpful. So there's another comment here. Your husband's 48 and still trying to cope with his career. I try to encourage him to get more rest, but he is resistant. Any suggestions? I'm going to turn to you guys. Do you guys have any suggestions to how to get someone to get more rest? So nobody has ever said that they've gotten too much rest. Rest is always a good thing, but again, it's about finding uh, the time, well, finding a doable place for that to happen, and really coming up with that plan. So looking at the week or looking at your day critically and saying, okay, well, what can give so that I can lie down for 15 or 20 minutes, and maybe that's all that it is needed. So it doesn't have to be giving away something's significant. It could just be taking a little bit of time off of something else. And the other thing I would say is it's a bit of looking at where you the last thing I want to encourage is multitasking, but it's a little bit of looking at where you can encourage multitasking. So if you're having to run from work to soccer practice to someplace else, then using that soccer practice to just stay in your car and put on some quiet music or close your eyes for a few minutes. So again, looking at different ways that you can fit that rest in. Oh, good suggestion. Low light and comfy chair. So I just mindful of the time, and it is 8 o'clock now, and there's definitely a wonderful active conversation going on. And I know Amy has typed in just to remind everybody that there is the online young onset support group that happens on the second Tuesday of the month from 7 to 8:30. So certainly a good opportunity for you to continue these kinds of conversations going. But I do want to again just say thank you for carving out the time and joining us this evening, and for sharing your perspectives and your thoughts, and to help everybody else who's doing their best to live life with Parkinson's. I'll just hand it over to Amy.
I also just want to thank everyone for taking the time this evening to log on to this webinar with us, and for Elaine for taking the time to speak for us. As I mentioned earlier in the chat, we do have our Young Onset Care Partner webinar coming up next Thursday at the same time from 7 until 8 p.m., as well as a Parenting and Young Onset webinar, which will be the following Thursday, same time, 7 until 8 p.m., and registration for both those webinars are still open. So thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to log on this evening, and I look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a good night.